Welcome into the Verts podcast. I'm Carter Bales alongside Tyler Graves. This is episode 10 of the Verts podcast. And Tyler, Tennessee did not look too good Saturday night against the Gamecocks.
No, and unfortunately, I was in attendance. I don't think I've ever said unfortunately after going to a game, but it
Very
was
unfortunate this week.
It was not fun. Tennessee was a 22.5-point favorite, and they got beat by 25 points. So the spread was wrong by 47.5 points.
Yeah, terrible game all around for the Vols, especially on the defensive side of the ball, allowing Spencer Rattler to throw 6 touchdown passes. You heard me right. He had, 7 going into this game? He finishes with 6 in this game. That puts him way above the interceptions on the touchdown-interception ratio.
And way over his average for the year.
It was bad. 30 for 37, 438 yards through the air, 6 passing touchdowns, a 96.9 QBR. Terrible game for the Vols defensively.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack from this game. You know, initially, South Carolina got the ball. They went down and scored. But then Tennessee got the ball. I thought that was the easiest drive we've had all year. We went right down. It was like 3 or 4 plays. Let me see if I can get the drive right here.
I believe it was 4 plays.
It was 4 plays, 75 yards, and it took 1:04. So that was one of the easiest drives Tennessee had all year. I was like, all right. I was like, this is about what I expected. And then from then on, it was just awful. South Carolina then got a touchdown on the next possession. And they actually scored on every single possession that they had except for the 3-and-out that they had right after halftime.
Yeah, going after halftime, a lot of people thought that the Vols were going to make adjustments like they did against Missouri and ended up pulling this one out big. But Tim Banks, I guess, just could not figure out a way to stop these guys as our DBs looked pitiful all game, especially on the deep balls. We gave up a lot of long conversions. One in particular stands out, the 3rd and 20 conversion that they ended up going down and scoring on. It was very hard to watch.
Yes, that's when, that 3rd and 20 is when I knew that we were not going to win this game. That was the one time where I thought, hey, we might actually get off the field here, because we sacked Rattler for a 10-yard loss on first down, and then it was 2nd and 20, 3rd and 20. I'm thinking, even if we hold them, the way that game was going, even if they got 15 yards and we held them to a field goal, that was a win for Tennessee's defense. But no, they give up a 3rd and 20. I'm sitting back in what looked like a 5-deep zone is what I saw, and I do want to talk about something that made me mad in this game was every time we would blitz, we wouldn't blitz a linebacker, or we would blitz a guy from 20 yards away, and it would take him 6 seconds to get there. And Rattler was getting the ball out quick, so if you're blitzing a safety from 20 yards away, he's not going to be able to get there in time.
Yeah, and on TV, because obviously I wasn't in attendance, Tyler and his father ended up making the trip down there. I did not. From what I saw on TV, it looked like they got away with holds all night. South Carolina's offensive line did, really keeping our front 4 guys from getting to Rattler, and he had a pretty clean jersey by the end of the night. It was just hard to watch, really hard to watch.
Yeah, the refs let him play quite a bit, although I did see the face mask that was not a face mask that South Carolina got called for. I think they called a face mask after Squirrel White caught the ball.
Yeah, they said he got under the helmet. That's why they called it a face mask, but it was like getting in a helmet cavity.
Well, on the Jumbotron, of course, I heard face mask, and so I'm looking for the face mask, and there was never a face mask. So that's what I was looking at. But Tennessee's defense just played, in my opinion, way too conservative. Gave up way too many easy yards. Thought they played pretty soft, actually. And this reminded me a lot defensively. This game reminded me a lot of the Music City Bowl last year against Purdue. It seemed like every single time that Purdue threw the ball, it was an 8-10 yard gain, and our guys would just continue to play bell coverage and back up, back up, back up, back up, and they would throw it underneath of our corners and get 8, 10, 12 yards every single time without a problem. And then the play that stood out in that game, this is why I say I think we played a little soft, is because, I remember when we played Purdue, the play that just still sticks in my mind is that tight end breaking like five tackles down the sideline and going into the end zone. And that's what I felt like I was watching on Saturday night too, but it was actually even worse.
Yeah, a lot of missed tackles, a lot of blown coverages on the outside, and I actually mentioned during the game over Twitter that I think changes are going to need to be made during the offseason on the defensive coaching side of the ball in order to really change the defense as a whole, because the secondary has really been bad all year. I want to move to the offensive side of the ball now. Tennessee didn't look great. It definitely wasn't their best game, but we moved the ball pretty consistently against the Gamecocks, scoring 38 points. Hendon Hooker, before he went down with his injury, 25 for 42, 247 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air. So a pretty good game from him. We also saw a lot of drops from our guys on the outside.
Well, Carter, we certainly did not do we did not execute one of my keys to the game, which was pound the rock.
Yeah, we didn't run the ball a lot. Really.
I was kind of disappointed. We did not even try to run the ball really a whole lot, especially when we got down. And I mean, I understand, you get down, you want to throw the ball, but like most of the time, until like the late in the third quarter, we were only down 1 or 2 possessions, and that, I mean, this offense can score in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not like you were, down so far that you have to throw it every down.
Yeah, we had a total of 28 carries as a team, and against a team like South Carolina, which has struggled stopping the run all year, that's not right. That's pretty pitiful. Only 152 yards on the ground, the majority of those coming from Jabari Small, who had 11 carries for 80 yards. Behind him, you had Jalen Wright for 28 on 6 carries, and Hendon Hooker 5 carries for 25 yards and a long of 29. So a few sacks ended up hurting his average.
I was excited to see Ramel Keaton make a couple of plays in this game for Tennessee's offense. I feel like he is going to be a special player next year.
He's got to be. He's got to take a big step up, especially if we end up losing Hyatt and Tillman both.
I think if you lose Hyatt and Tillman, he is going to kind of fill that role, because I'm really impressed at how he is came along this year. And assuming he stays, I'm pretty sure he's going to stay.
He didn't participate in senior day.
Yes. So I fully anticipate Ramel Keaton to be back next year, and I think he will be one of the key contributors to the Vols offense. Looking at some stats from this game, goodness, Cedric Tillman, he had 18 targets. I did not realize that. Only caught 9 of them for 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. Brew McCoy, he had kind of a quiet night. He had 3 catches for 19 yards and a touchdown, and that touchdown, of course, was on the tipped ball in the end zone. Squirrel White was actually Tennessee's leading receiver as far as yards. He had 5 catches for 96 yards, no touchdowns, but the majority of that came off the long pass from Joe Milton in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, speaking on Joe Milton, he looked pretty good out there. He had a few overthrown balls whenever Hooker went out with the torn ACL.
Yeah,
for a speedy recovery there.
Yeah.
But he looked pretty good. Had a few overthrown balls, but that one to Squirrel White was ridiculous. He was throwing it. We were talking about this on the way over here, actually. He was throwing it on the run, just kind of stepped into it and threw it, and it was like 65 yards through the air, and he really didn't even have a chance to get full power on it. So it's something to look forward to next year, that's for sure, and the next 2 games as he'll be the starter.
Yes, he will be, unfortunately, because Hendon Hooker got hurt in this game, torn ACL. He is done for the year, and I really hope that it does not impact his pro career, but it probably will.
Yeah,
and I hate that, because he has been such a great ambassador for the University of Tennessee since he's arrived.
Yeah, it's tough to see, and that's the first thing I really thought of whenever I saw him down. It wasn't about the rest of this season. It's like, dang, that guy just lost out on a couple $1 million. As I figured he would at least be a day two guy, and it's looking like he might end up being a day three guy in the draft, kind of lower draft pick because of that injury. Because an ACL is hard to come back from.
Speaking of Joe Milton, though, looking at the next two games here a little bit, Joe Milton, I have always said, has one of the highest ceilings of any quarterback, I guess, in college football right now. You know, his arm is just, it's so impressive to watch him be able to make these throws. He's got a cannon. He can throw the ball 80 yards flat-footed. I mean, it is insane what this guy is able to do. But he also has a pretty low floor because he does tend to, his accuracy is not the best.
It has improved.
He tends to overthrow guys. However, I'm hoping that has, I guess, been fixed because every time I've seen him play this year, he's looked a lot better than last year, and that gives me hope for, I guess, the rest of this year and moving forward into next year.
Yeah, particularly the touchdown pass he had. He actually missed Hyatt on a seam route, or excuse me, Tillman. I believe it was Tillman. Way overthrew him. He was wide open. Just rushed his throw a little bit, threw way over his head, and then I think 2 plays later, maybe he ended up finding him for 6. That was a good ball that he threw on the touchdown pass. But he could have had it 2 plays earlier if he would have just hit him on the money. And that is one thing that worries me with him as the head guy in the quarterback room next week. You can't miss out on those opportunities, especially if your defense isn't going to help you out much.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a short break, and we will come back with our SEC Talk segment. You're listening to the Verts podcast.
Welcome back to the Verts podcast. We're now going to transition into our SEC Talk segment. There's a few games that we're actually not going to go into much detail on. Tyler's going to read those off real quick.
Yes, those 4 games are Austin Peay and Alabama. Alabama won 34-0 at home. Mississippi State took care of business against ETSU, winning 56-7. Missouri beat New Mexico State 45-14, and LSU beat UAB 41-10 at home. So good win there for the Tigers. And then the first game we will actually talk about and go into detail with is the UMass and Texas A&M game. This was one of my locks, and Carter, it hit as UMass is able to keep it within 32 points against the Aggies.
Yeah, definitely not a game that A&M fans would have thought was going to be close. At least I would think, but considering how your season's been going, you might have thought this game would be pretty close. UMass came into the game at 1-9 and ended up suffering a loss. Being 1-10, A&M is able to pull it out. Connor Wigman, 11 for 19, 191 yards, and 1 touchdown. Not a whole lot of yards through the air. And on the ground, they had a team total of 213. Le'Veon Moss had 12 carries for 78. And then Amari Daniels, 17 carries for 67 yards as A&M is still playing without A-Chain.
And, the reason I picked this game for my lock of the week is because the way A&M has been playing, this has been a disaster year. There's no other way to put it. They are probably the most disappointing team in all of college football this year. So this is why, I circled this game and I said, this is definitely going to be closer than 32 points because I'm not sure there's a team in Division I right now that A&M could beat by 32 points.
Yeah, and me and you actually mentioned if A&M lost this game, they would have had to have fired Jimbo Fisher. That would have been a no decision sort of thing, or like no thought into it sort of thing. They would have had to have gotten rid of him, as UMass is terrible.
Yes, UMass is consistently one of the worst programs, I guess, in – I think they're FBS now.
They're FBS.
They used to be FCS, but they're I don't even know what conference they play in. Do they play in the Conference USA? Is that what they're in? They might be
I
independent.
think they're independent.
That's even that's even more brutal. Uh, so yeah, UMass is just they're consistently one of the worst programs in college football nationally. So for A&M to kind of struggle with them is, I mean, there's no excuse for that. But like I said, it's not a surprise when you look at how A&M has been this second half of the season, really since the Alabama game.
Yeah, and I would expect a lot of transfers leaving
There's already been a
A&M.
couple.
I'd say that'll increase as we get closer and closer to the off season.
Next game, Georgia at Kentucky. This was kind of a struggle fest as Georgia is only able to score 16 points. But the good news for them is they held Kentucky to 6, so they won 16-6.
Yeah, the defense definitely took over for Georgia as Kentucky didn't have any points on the board until the fourth quarter, where they scored a touchdown and went for two, didn't get it. But yeah, I love how Georgia's offense struggles against teams that it can struggle against. Whenever they don't have to rely on their offense to score points, they tend to do pretty well, or they tend to still win. But with games like Tennessee, and Oregon, they ramp it up and put a whole bunch of points on the board.
Georgia really leaned on their running game in this one. They had Kenny McIntosh. He had 19 carries for 143 yards. Dejan Edwards had 14 carries for 50 yards, and then Milton had 6 for 31. So Georgia was able to really pound the rock against Kentucky, and I'm surprised. The one thing I am surprised about is their passing game. So Bennett, if he wins if Georgia wins the national championship this year, I think he'll probably go down as the worst quarterback in the modern era. Probably when I say modern era, I mean since 2000 to win a national championship.
He's pretty close.
I mean,
even Mettenberger.
Definitely to win 2.
Yeah,
but I still think.
Even Mettenberger looked good at the college level. Stetson Bennett has had some of the most mediocre quarterback games I've ever seen in my entire life, and they're still 11-0. So it's been crazy to watch.
That just speaks to how good Georgia's defense is.
And the people around Stetson.
How well they recruit, because I was thinking about this, the other day. I was like, even when Alabama played great defense, ran the ball, they didn't really have elite quarterbacks, but they still had A.J. McCarron. They had guys like Blake Sims. They had guys like, even Jake Coker. I would put Jake Coker above Stetson Bennett.
Oh, I would agree with that. So, I think Jake Coker had more consistent, high-scoring games under his belt.
I just, that just speaks to, it's not really knock against Stetson Bennett. It's more of, look at how good Georgia is, in spite of the, I guess, not elite play at quarterback.
Yeah, and it kind of worries me because I don't know what their quarterback room looks like next year without Stetson Bennett, as he is a game manager, and they don't have that next year. So their offense could struggle a little bit.
Well, Carson Beck, he gets a lot of playing time right now because they're in so many blowout games. And then Brock Vandegrift, he's their third string, I know. And both of those guys were highly rated out of high school. I think I want to say one of them was a 5-star and the other was a high 4-star.
I think Beck was a 5-star, if I remember correctly.
So they're going to be fine moving forward. As far as Kentucky, they gave Mark Stoops an extension 2 weeks ago, and it was announced, I think, on Saturday. What do you think about that, Carter? They're upping his pay to around $9 million per year.
Yeah, I guess that's to keep him there because I'm sure he's been in talks for multiple head coaching openings this offseason. But, they gave him an extension to have a chance to go 6-6 this year. That's where that football program is. As Will Levis, the savior of Kentucky football, Will Levis, is not looking great. His draft stock has continued to decline because I can't say that you can blame most of his bad games on the people around him, as he's made some pretty bad decisions himself. The touchdown interception ratio is not great for this year, and that's worrisome for NFL scouts. It's got to be.
Let's move on to another SEC East matchup. Florida at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt picks up their second conference win of the year, defeating Florida 31-24 in Nashville. 600 students rushed the field. Afterwards, it was pandemonium in the Music City.
Yeah, rushing the field, you mean security helping them down onto the field so they can celebrate with their team. I don't even know. Did they get fined?
Yes, they did.
They did?
It
was probably like $1,000.
No, it was the full fine.
Really?
Yes.
That's surprising. Mike Wright, he's looking pretty good on the ground. He didn't really do much on the ground this game. He had 3 passing touchdowns, but their offense has really been focused on running the football, and it's worked out. Florida looked pretty bad. I'm hearing a lot of whispers on Twitter. A lot of people thinking Billy Napier's not going to work out down there in Gainesville.
Well, the thing that I always am hesitant to do is year one say this coach is awful and he's never going to work, because I just go back to Kirby Smart, his first year at Georgia. He lost to Vandy at home. He lost to Georgia Tech. He got blown out by Ole Miss. So I always am cautious. And Nick Saban, he lost to Louisiana Monroe. So I'm always cautious about indicting a coach in year one. Now year 2, year 3, yeah, you can't be losing to Vanderbilt if you're the head coach at Florida. But right now, I think I guess it's okay. I mean, you never want to lose to Vandy, but I guess it's
a lot of people are saying this is going to be his least talented roster he'll ever have.
Yes, and it probably will be. Plus, Vandy, I mean, they're playing their best football right now. They're kind of hot, actually.
Yeah, which is worrisome for Tennessee fans because they've got a chance for bowl eligibility this week.
This is not the time that you want to be playing Vanderbilt. They've beat Kentucky and Florida the past 2 weeks, so I'm kind of starting to sweat about next week. We'll get into that in a second. Well, I guess this week, technically this Saturday. But Anthony Richardson, he actually, if you look at the box score, he had a pretty good game. He had 400 yards through the air.
Well, he had 400 yards through the air, though, because they couldn't get anything going on the ground. As a team, they had 45 yards on the ground. Their leading rusher was Montrell Johnson Jr. He had 11 carries for 32 yards. That's under 3 yards per carry. So not a good game on the ground for the Gators.
But Florida, I've seen a lot of people complain about Anthony Richardson lately. He's not really improved much since the beginning of the year. A lot of people are blaming coaching. Some are just like, is this guy ever going to develop? Because he's got a really good arm, and he's got the talent, but he can't seem to put it together yet. And to be a quarterback in the NFL, he's going to have to be able to do some of those things. Like I look at a guy like Malik Willis, for example. Malik Willis for the Titans has all the talent in the world, but obviously if you watch the game where I guess it was 2 weeks ago, the Titans played the Chiefs. I watched that game. It was the Sunday night game, and it was very obvious Malik Willis is not ready to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. But I mean,
and very few people are coming out of college.
He has potential. I mean, he has some potential. So I feel the same way about Anthony Richardson. I think him and Malik Willis are in very similar positions. If Anthony Richardson does decide to declare for the draft,
he shouldn't. But if
I think he will be probably a mid-round draft pick just because of his upside. If he didn't have that upside, I don't think he would get drafted. So, next game we will talk about is Western Kentucky at Auburn. 41-17 was the final score, but we're not really going to talk much about this game in particular, but we're rather going to talk about the coaching search, as last night it was reported that Lane Kiffin is going to be taking the Auburn job after the Egg Bowl's conclusion, and he is going to be resigning and then accepting the Auburn head coaching vacancy on Friday.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've mentioned this on the podcast, but me and you have talked privately about Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. He's hit his ceiling over there. He has. They're at most they're going to have about 10 wins per year going into the bowl game. I think that's probably the best they're ever really going to be able to do because I mean Oxford, Mississippi. The campus is great, but Mississippi as a whole, not a great place to live, and recruits know that. They don't really want to go to Mississippi because it's a beautiful state. You
I
know.
mean, there's not a ton there. I mean, it's not like Knoxville where you've got like it's an actual city and you've got all these skyscrapers. You got all these buildings. You got the river here. You got Market Square, the Strip. Oxford is it's your classic college town. It's very small. Starkville's kind of like this too, but Starkville's I think Oxford's better than Starkville. Oxford's, it's basically Ole Miss, and that's it,
Yeah.
really.
No. Anytime you're at Mississippi, you're not going to be competing for. You're not going to be competing for national championships at Ole Miss. Is pretty much what we're saying. You might have that 1 year, but 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be in like excellent contention because you're not going to be able to recruit a whole bunch of guys over there. You're going to get a select few, but you're not going to be able to recruit a whole bunch.
If you catch lightning in a bottle, you could make a run 1 year, but it's the team versus program part. Auburn is a much better program than Ole Miss. That doesn't mean necessarily that Ole Miss is always going to have a worse team than Auburn because team is year to year. Program is over the span of multiple years. So I think that's what is going through Lane Kiffin's mind right now. I don't know if he's going to take the job or not because I know the guy that reported that last night is the same person who broke the John Cohen to Auburn news, which was true. I don't doubt that report was true, but this is not a good look for Kiffin if he is. I mean, because right now on Twitter, he's not denying that he's going to Auburn, but he pretty much is.
Yeah, it's well, anything you got to take everything Kiffin tweets with a grain of salt as it is, because he likes to stir the pot. That's just what he does. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does end up leaving, and that would kind of explain why they played so poorly against Arkansas this past week.
Regardless of if he's leaving or not leaving, I do think this will have a major effect on Thursday's Egg Bowl.
I would agree.
And speaking of Ole Miss, we're going to talk about them as they lost 42-27 to Arkansas. Big win for Sam Pittman and the Razorbacks as they are now bowl eligible, ladies and gentlemen. The Arkansas Razorbacks are going bowling. I didn't think it would take this long to say that this year, but they are now 6-5.
Yeah, at least Tennessee can say that their loss was not as bad as, well, I don't know. It might be just about as bad as
Tennessee's loss was definitely worse.
No, it was definitely worse with what was on the line, and we didn't mention that, but that's why the loss was so bad for Tennessee fans and the program in general. What was on the line, you cannot do that. Anyway, moving on to this game, on the ground and through the air. I mean, Ole Miss had over 700 yards offensively and only put 27 points on the board. That shows you how bad this red zone offense was for the Rebels.
Yes, Ole Miss once again was able to run the ball very effectively in this game. However, their defense kind of let them down. I mean, Arkansas this year has struggled on offense quite a bit, and they were pretty much able to do whatever they wanted against Ole Miss. And this score really, the final score in this game really wasn't indicative of what the game actually was. I mean, this game was pretty much a blowout.
Yeah.
And the score was a lot worse, or the game was a lot worse than the score indicated.
I mean, the score was 35-6 at halftime.
Yeah. So, I mean, this game was over at halftime. And, really,
Mississippi didn't make it a game until the fourth quarter whenever they scored 21 points in the fourth.
Scoring 21 points in the fourth quarter that's why it's 15-point differential, excuse me. But yeah, Arkansas, of course, they've got Missouri coming up this week, but I'm still disappointed that that this year hasn't gone the way that many people thought that it would. I know Arkansas has a really tough schedule. Yes, I know that they've got one of the top 2 or 3 toughest schedules in all of college football this year. But I still expected them to be probably like 8-3 right now, somewhere around there. Going into this last game, going to finish off 9-3. But now I don't even know if I can pick him to beat Missouri even after this game, just because the way this year has gone. They lost to Liberty. They were getting beat by Missouri State for 3 quarters. So it's certainly been a concerning year for Razorback fans, and I know a lot of them are starting to question, at least before this game, they were starting to question, Sam Pittman, some of the things that they're doing down there. But I think this game, at least for now, has kind of settled everyone down there. I mean, it should, because
they're still not happy with how the season has gone.
You beat a very good Ole Miss team.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. Regardless of if Lane Kiffin is talking to Auburn or whatever's going on there, you still beat a good Ole Miss team. And you need to give yourself credit, because it could always be worse. you could always be Vanderbilt. Although Vanderbilt right now is having some success.
Yeah, unfortunately, considering we play them at the end of the year.
All right,
I believe that does it.
Yes, we're going to go ahead and talk about this week's SEC games. So we've got quite the slate for you, as of course this is rivalry weekend, I guess you could say. That's what I usually call this weekend. It's the state rivalries, where most of these games are going to be within the state of whatever,
or the bordering state.
Yes,
one of the two.
So the first game we have is going to be the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving. They always play this game on Thanksgiving. It's Mississippi State versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss right now is a 2.5-point favorite. Make sure to watch this one. It's on ESPN at 7 o'clock Thursday night.
Yeah, so the spread is only Ole Miss minus 2.5 here. So I think that outside talk of Lane Kiffin possibly leaving is the reason for this spread being so close. I'm gonna take the Bulldogs to win this game. Mike Leach wins some games he's not supposed to win, and I think this is going to be one of them.
Give me the Mississippi State Bulldogs and Mike Leach. The Pirate is going to take down Lane Kiffin, and Lane Kiffin will be packing his bags and going to Auburn the next day.
Wouldn't be surprising.
Next game, they always play this one on Friday, as this will be Arkansas and Missouri. Missouri, if they win this game, will get to bowl eligibility. Arkansas clinched bowl eligibility last week, as we just discussed, with their win over Ole Miss. I will start on this one. I'm going to go with Arkansas on the road. I think they get it done against Missouri, although I would not be surprised if Missouri won this game, because, like I said, Arkansas has struggled all year long, more than I had anticipated.
I think Missouri's going to go out there and they're gonna play a really good game. Arkansas gives up more yards on the ground than Missouri does, and Arkansas can move the ball on the ground pretty well, especially with Brady Cook, as we saw against Tennessee. So give me the Tigers. I think the Tigers are going to win this game. They're going to become bowl eligible, and that's a good way for Drinkwitz to end off the season.
Yes, that would be a very good season, I think, for Missouri. They've got Luther Burden, who's a freshman, and he's a 5-star, if nobody knows. He's a 5-star, highest-rated recruit, I think, in Missouri's history.
He is.
So getting him back next year, and it's not like it's just him. They've got a couple more pieces. Of course, they're not 5 stars.
Cook's a senior, isn't he? I believe Brady Cook is a
yes,
senior.
but I'm talking about skill positions.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that'll be a good way for him to end off his career as a Tiger too.
Yes, yes, it would be. Florida State. This game is also on Friday, 7:30 ABC. Florida State's favored by 9.5. Carter,
give me the Seminoles. I think Florida State's going to win this game. It's at home. Florida's coming off of a disappointing loss against Vanderbilt, and they're going to lose again. So Florida State's going to finish off the season 9-3. The Gators 6-6.
I am going to take Florida State in this one. Although I do think that Florida will keep it close, so give me Florida plus 9.5. Florida State will win, though, and the ticket prices. Wow, the ticket prices for that game are pretty expensive. That's
$135 a piece.
Yeah, I'm shocked that they're that high for that game. Next game is going to be South Carolina at Clemson. Clemson is favored by 14.5. Obviously, South Carolina is coming off a big win against Tennessee, and Clemson is 10-1, looking to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, South Carolina coming off of a pretty big game against the Vols, obviously. Biggest win in, some people are saying one of the biggest wins in program history as they blew out the Vols, unfortunately. I think Spencer Rattler is going to go back to the Spencer Rattler we've known all year, as Clemson actually has a good defense. So give me the Tigers to win this game, and I think they're going to win it pretty handily.
I'm going to go with Clemson as well. I do think it'll be interesting to watch this game and see what South Carolina looks like. Obviously, last week, we didn't talk about this, but last week they were at home. It was senior night, so obviously they were going to play their best brand of football. This one, you're going on the road to Clemson. It's a rivalry game. It's at noon. How do they respond after a big win? Probably the biggest win that program has had since Steve Spurrier was there.
That is the biggest win.
And certainly the signature win so far for Shane Beamer. How does his team respond after the win last week? I think regardless of how Carolina plays, I think Clemson will win. I just don't know
what kind of South Carolina team will show up.
I just don't know if it'll be a 3-point win for Clemson or if it'll be like 21, 24 points, because Clemson does have the talent and the ability to blow South Carolina out. So next game we will discuss is Georgia Tech at Georgia. Georgia's favored by 35.5, Carter, and you have a lock on this game, I believe.
I do. So I believe that Georgia Tech, as we've seen really all year, Georgia tends to play down to their opponent quite a bit. And I think Georgia Tech is actually going to end up plus 35.5 here. I don't see the Bulldogs blowing out the Yellow Jackets, but Georgia's going to win this game regardless. They're going to finish off the season 12-0, and they're going to make a playoff run.
Yes, I tend to agree with you, Carter. I think Georgia's going to win this game. I think Georgia Tech will keep it within that 35.5 points, but definitely think Georgia will win this game. Don't think anyone in America is going to pick Georgia Tech to win here. But so this is going to be a warm-up game for Georgia for the SEC championship. Next game is Louisville and Kentucky. Kentucky is favored by 3 points at home. This game comes on the SEC network at 3 o'clock. Louisville, the FPI actually likes Louisville in this game, but Vegas likes the Wildcats.
Yeah, you go ahead on this one, Tyler. I need to mull on this one a little bit.
Well, I could certainly see, Kentucky winning this game. It's at home. It's senior day for a lot of those Kentucky players. But I just think Louisville's playing a lot better than Kentucky right now. So give me the Louisville Cardinals and Scott Satterfield.
Yeah, this one's kind of tough for me. I'm going to go off of defensive statistics alone on this one. Louisville has given up only 139 yards on the ground per game. That's pretty darn good. And they've got some pretty tough running backs in the ACC. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals to win this game, I guess. I'm not very confident with that pick because I could see Kentucky going out and actually playing a pretty good game. But like you said, Louisville's been playing a lot better than Kentucky has as of late, and that's going to continue.
Next up is the Iron Bowl, Auburn at Alabama. This line is currently Alabama minus 22, and one of my locks this week is Auburn plus 22. I think the Auburn Tigers will cover in this game. Don't think they'll win, but I certainly think it'll be closer than 22 points. So, I mean, there's my pick. I'm picking Alabama. Big surprise.
Yeah, we've seen crazy things happen in this game. You've had the kick six. You've had just what else have you had? There's been a lot of crazy games.
The Cam game where they came back. You had last year where it went into like 5 overtimes.
Yeah, and really, if we look at Auburn's season as a whole, the one thing that they have missed all year has been a solid quarterback. Robbie Ashford is a good running quarterback, but he doesn't have the arm talent that Bo Nix had over there. So, no surprise. Give me Alabama to win this game. But I wouldn't be surprised if this game's a lot closer than people are expecting it to be.
All right. And the last SEC game we will discuss is LSU at Texas A&M. This is a night game. It comes on ESPN at 7 o'clock. A&M is a 10-point underdog at home. Obviously, they cannot make a bowl game as they are 4-7 right now. LSU, however, is ranked inside the top 5, and they have already clinched the SEC West.
Yeah, and that really shows you why. Well, I guess it really doesn't matter anymore because they have one SEC loss. But going into last week, I think that's why a lot of people are wanting the SEC, especially Greg Sankey, to go away from divisions in the SEC because before the South Carolina game, Tennessee was the second best team in the SEC. So give me LSU to win this game. That's a pretty easy pick for me. The Aggies are going to fall to 4-8. There's no other way to put it. A&M's terrible.
Well, there's this thing called logic, and then there's this thing called
gut feelings.
Gut feelings, yes. Yeah. Guys, I just have a gut feeling that A&M is going to win this game. I think Jimbo Fisher's going to get it done. I don't know why.
He'll end up keeping himself from internal investigations, is what you're saying.
This would absolutely be hilarious, though, and I am going to pick A&M to beat LSU at Kyle Field. So, and that would, I can already hear everyone, all the LSU fans complaining about, I can't believe we lost to Texas A&M, and that would end their playoff talks, as even if they beat Georgia and they were 10-3, they are not getting in the playoff with a loss to A&M.
Well, if they lose to A&M, they're definitely not beating Georgia.
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't matter if you believe they're not beating game or not.
I don't care if they beat A&M by 30 points; they're not beating Georgia.
No.
So that's my opinion on the SEC championship. If you want a quick preview for that. All right, we are going to take a break, and we will be back with our non-SEC picks. You are listening to the Verts podcast.
Welcome in to the Verts podcast. We're now going to transition into our non-SEC game pick segment. Our first game will be the Baylor Bears traveling to the Texas Longhorns. The spread here is Texas minus 8.5. I'll go ahead and make my pick. Baylor had a pretty good game against TCU, ended up losing last second on a ballsy call. There's no other way to put it. A ballsy call by TCU to run a guy out there after running the ball and kicking a field goal to win it with no time on the clock. I'm gonna go Baylor to win this game. I think, and that's actually also one of my locks. I've got Baylor plus 8.5 here, as the spread is minus 8.5 in favor of Texas. I think Baylor's going to win this game, finish 5-4 in the conference, and that's a pretty big win for the Bears to end their season.
I'm going Baylor. So yeah, I don't I don't agree with the line on this game. I'm going to go Baylor on the road.
Yep. So he puts it in a lot simpler terms than I
We
did.
agree.
We
We
do
agree. And then the next game we will pick is Tulane at Cincinnati, Group of 5 matchup here. Ranked Group of 5 matchup, as both of these teams are ranked inside the top 25. Tulane is, I think they're 9-2, Carter.
Yep, Tulane is 9-2. Cincinnati also 9-2, both 6-1 in their conference.
I am going to go with Tulane on the road in this one. This game is being played, isn't it being played at noon?
It is a noon kickoff in Cincinnati.
Yes. If this was a night game, I would pick Cincinnati, but since it is at noon, probably not going to be too many fans there, considering this is being played on a Friday, on Black Friday, actually. I will go with Tulane on the road.
I think I'll also go with Tulane here. They had a pretty big win against SMU, who is, I want to say, 7-4 on the year.
Yeah, they actually, I think they beat them pretty bad.
Yeah, 59-24.
Yeah.
So really good win. Temple also got blown out. Cincinnati blew out Temple 23-3. Not as big of a win, though.
No surprise.
So, yeah. So give me the green wave here. I think they're going to finish the season 10-2 on the year.
So we're both picking the underdogs to start off. All right. NC State at North Carolina. This is the battle for the state of North Carolina as, could you say that with Duke being good this year? And Wake.
Yeah, I don't think you can say that this year.
No, I don't think so
Usually
either.
that's how it is, but not today. Not this week or this year.
I'll start off. North Carolina's coming off a bad loss to Georgia Tech. I think they have a bounce back game, and I think they win this one over the NC State Wolfpack.
Yeah, I believe Leary's still out for NC State at quarterback.
Yeah, he's out for the year.
Okay, yeah, he's still out. Drake May is still playing a high level of football. North Carolina doesn't have a great defense, but it's not going to matter because they're going to end up winning this game against the Wolfpack.
All right, next game, and we're going to talk about this one quite a bit, probably. The game, Michigan and Ohio State. The line on this game is currently, what is it, Carter?
Let's see. The line is OSU minus 7.5. Excuse me here. So Ohio State in favor by 7.5 points. FPI also has Ohio State as a 72% chance to be the winner.
So that line's actually gone down because it was 9.5 a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, this game is in Columbus.
Both teams coming off of pretty bad weeks.
Last year, Michigan won this game over Ohio State convincingly in Ann Arbor. It was snowing. The weather, it was very cold, wet. The conditions certainly played an impact into that game. And Ohio State has not played well in inclement weather this year. I have not looked at the weather report for this game.
Looks like it's just 48 degrees. So it looks
48
like it's
degrees
just
and overcast, so it's just going to be kind of cold. Actually, 48 degrees in Columbus, that's not too bad.
No.
For late November. But looks like it's going to be a typical Big Ten matchup here as you've got Michigan who can run the football very effectively. Michigan can run the ball on anybody in the country. Blake Corum's one of the best backs in America. Ohio State, on the other hand, they have probably the best receiving corps in America, as they have Marvin Harrison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Egbuka, I can never pronounce his name. They're all good. C.J. Stroud's very good. Their quarterback, very experienced. He will be a very high pick in the NFL draft this upcoming year. So you've got a lot of things riding on the table too, of course. Whoever wins this game is, assuming they don't lose in the Big Ten championship game, whoever wins this game will make it into the playoff. The loser of this game will likely not make the playoff, although that's kind of up in the air right now with Tennessee losing. So, and I've thought about this game a lot, because this is a big game, 2 versus 3. I've leaned Michigan the past couple of weeks. But, Carter, it's like we said, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, maybe off air, we could see this game being a blowout for either side or being close.
Yeah, and before Tennessee decided to lose against South Carolina, I think Tennessee fans just off the record. I think not off the record, but side tangent. I believe Tennessee fans are going to be upset about that loss for a while. But I was saying we don't want this game to be close. We want it to be a blowout either way, because if it's a blowout either way, it's a better chance for Tennessee to get in. I don't really care anymore.
No.
I think this game is going to actually end up being pretty close. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a blowout either way, but I think this game is going to be close considering how both teams have kind of struggled recently, and it's cold. So you're going to see a lot of running the ball. I don't think you'll see a whole lot of passing from Michigan. C.J. Stroud, on the other hand, is going to throw the ball all over the place. As like you said, they've got the best receiving core in college football. A lot of those guys are going to be making millions of dollars here soon. I'll go ahead and make my pick here. Oh gosh, this is hard. I don't like either team, but I like Michigan a little less. So give me the Wolverines to win this game. I dislike Michigan a little less, I guess I should say.
I still don't know who I'm picking in this game.
I'm going strictly off of which team I like more.
Well, so I don't know if Michigan can match up with Ohio State on the outside. This is what scares me the most about this game. I'm going to go with Ohio State just based off of that, because I do think Michigan will struggle to match up with Ohio State's receivers.
Michigan does have the best defense that Ohio State has played.
Yes.
Yet.
I still don't think they can match up consistently with Ohio State's receiving core. I think that passing game will be too much. Plus, it's in Columbus. The crowd will play a factor in this game. It usually does. I do trust Michigan to keep it within 7.5 points.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy. I would go plus right here, Michigan.
Although this is a major key indicator to watch early on in this game. If at the end of the first quarter Michigan has like 10 yards rushing, this game is over. This game is absolutely over. Michigan has to be able to run the ball on Ohio State and run it early and often. If they have any chance of winning this game. I think it's going to be close, so I'm going to pick Ohio State to win. Michigan, however, I will pick them plus 7.5.
That's probably a good pick, Tyler. Like we both said, this game could really go either way.
All right, next game, Coastal Carolina takes on James Madison. James Madison is favored by 13.5 points right now. This game comes on ESPN at noon on Saturday. I will go first. I will go with James Madison here. I just think it's hard for me to pick a 13.5 point underdog. So I'm going to go with James Madison as they've been playing some pretty good ball this year. They have a good team. Coastal Carolina, they still have Grayson McCall, but surprisingly they haven't been as good this year as they were last year. I know they're 9-1, but they have one of the weakest schedules I've ever seen. They're playing basically glorified JV teams every single week. So give me James Madison at home.
Yeah, that's a really big spread. Like you said, Coastal really hasn't played anybody this year. Their one loss being to Old Dominion, where they got blown out 49-21. James Madison dropped 3 in a row against Georgia Southern, Marshall, and Louisville, and then has won 2 in a row against Old Dominion, who they beat 37-3, and Georgia State, who they beat 42-40.
And that Georgia State's a good win for them.
Yes, it's a very good win because Georgia State is a pretty good football team.
Yeah.
Give me the Dukes here. I think James Madison is going to win this game. That Old Dominion score really just says it all. Says it all to me. Coastal lost to them at home pretty handily, and James Madison beat them on the road.
All right, what about Pac-12? Oregon takes on the Oregon State Beavers. Oregon is currently favored by 3 points. This game comes on ABC at 3:30, so it'll be 12:30 Pacific time. Oregon State. A lot of people don't know that Oregon State's a tough place to play. I think the crowd will have an impact on this game. But I think that Oregon is going to walk out of here with a win over the Oregon State Beavers.
All right, I'll pick this one now. Bo Nix has had a great year. He has. He's led the Ducks to a really good season, especially after a coaching change like they had this past offseason. Most teams you tend to see a drop in success, and for Oregon, that's not really the case. They've played just about as well as they did with Mario Cristobal there. So yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Tyler. Give me the Ducks to win this game. I think they're just going to be too much to handle for the Beavers. Even though, like you said, that's not the easiest place to play.
Next game is Iowa State at TCU. TCU, once again, is favored, but barely favored, as they are only favored by 10 points. This is not the typical line you see from the fourth-ranked team in the country in the last week of the season over an unranked team.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, I was a TCU. I was like a rooter. I rooted for TCU quite a bit. I was like, yeah, guys, come on. I've grown to dislike them quite a bit over the past few weeks in particular. And that's nothing against what they're doing. I just, as a Tennessee fan, I grew a distaste came upon me, and I'm not a fan of the Horned Frogs anymore. However, I think they're going to win this game. This spread seems a little low for me against Iowa State, who really is not good at all. So give me the Horned Frogs to win this game, and unfortunately, they're going to end the season 12-0.
Well, it's hard for me, like you said, Carter, it's kind of hard for me to root for a team who's, in my opinion, has gotten lucky multiple
They're overrated.
times.
They're so overrated.
They've gotten lucky multiple times this year, but as long as they keep winning, I'm going to pick them. Give me TCU, although I do think Iowa State will keep it within 10 points in this game. So I'm picking TCU to win close, as they have done the past few weeks. Next game, big game actually, Notre Dame at USC. USC is currently favored by 5.5, and this is going to be the 7:30 game on ABC. Don't know where Notre Dame's going to be ranked in the new playoff poll, as they will announce those later today. But USC is probably going to be 5 or 6 after Tennessee's loss to South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm going to say USC's probably going to end up moving to 5 in the college football playoff after their win against UCLA, who was ranked. That just seems like a bigger win to me than UAB, obviously. But every time I pick against Notre Dame, they end up winning, and every time I pick for Notre Dame, they end up losing. I'm going to hope that changes this week, because I'm going to pick Notre Dame to pull the upset and beat USC, but I'm not necessarily confident with that pick.
Give me the Irish. I'm going with Notre Dame too, Carter. So we're in agreement. As I'm actually kind of confident in this pick. I don't think USC has seen a team as physical as Notre Dame.
No, and USC's defense is not good.
Yes, exactly. I think they will struggle heavily against Notre Dame, especially on the ground. Next game will be the Apple Cup. Washington and Washington State, they always play this game at 10:30 Eastern Time on Saturday night. Washington, however, right now, I'm kind of surprised by this. They're only favored by 2 points against Wazoo.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that's just because it's at home for the Cougars. But Washington has been playing some really good football recently. Just blew out Colorado, which really isn't that big of a surprise, because Colorado's terrible. But I think the Huskies are going to win this game. They're going to finish the season 10-2, and Washington State 7-5. I don't really understand the spread being so close here.
I believe Washington will win this game, so I think they're going to win the Apple Cup in Pullman. So give me the Huskies. I like Kalen DeBoer. I think that would be a great, if he goes 10-2, if he wins this game and they finish 10-2, that would be a great first year under Kalen DeBoer. And the last game is Kansas at Kansas State. The line on this game is Kansas State minus 12. Before the year, I actually picked Kansas to win this game. I no longer think that, as Kansas has kind of fallen off a cliff in the past month. So give me Kansas State at home.
Yeah, that's not very hard for me. Kansas has struggled since Jalen Daniels left, and that's going to continue. I think Kansas State is going to win this game. They're going to win it rather handily. I don't think this game is going to be particularly close.
I also have two more locks of the week. I already told you my Auburn plus 22 against Alabama. I'm also going to go with UCLA minus 10 versus Cal. Cal is not a very good football team. I expect UCLA to cover there. And then Arizona versus Arizona State. I'm going to pick Arizona minus 4 against the Sun Devils. And Carter, now it is time for the Toilet Bowl. This week's Toilet Bowl is going to take place in none other than Husky Stadium as the Northern Illinois Huskies take on Akron, the Zips. Akron is 1-9 on the year. Northern Illinois is 3-8. So neither of these teams are going to a bowl game. Northern Illinois currently is favored by 10 points.
Give me the Huskies. I can't pick the Zips. The Zips are still, not happy with them as they hurt Cedric Tillman earlier in this year. They play dirty, so give me the Huskies big.
I will also take Northern Illinois in this game. I'm not a big believer in Akron. Their only win all year has been against the St. Francis, Pennsylvania, whatever. I don't even know what their mascot is, but that was in week 1, right before they played Michigan State and Tennessee, and they have lost every single game since then in Maction.
Serves them right.
All right, so that is going to do it for our pick segment. Carter, I think you did get both of your locks in.
Yeah, I did both of mine. Baylor plus 8.5 and Georgia Tech plus
35
and a
yes.
half over Georgia.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with the Tennessee Vanderbilt preview. You are listening to the Verts podcast.
Welcome back to the Verts podcast, as we are going to transition into our preview of the Tennessee Vandy game. As the Commodores coming off of a win, Tennessee obviously coming off of a loss. A lot of momentum for Vandy going into this game. They got a chance to be bowl eligible, and I expect them to give Tennessee their absolute best.
Yes, I do as well, Carter, as Vandy is not the Vandy of old right now. You do not want to be playing Vanderbilt this week, but unfortunately Tennessee is. Tennessee's also playing them without Hendon Hooker, which is not good. And they're playing them after a very questionable loss to South Carolina, where a lot of questions I think are going to get answered on Saturday.
Particularly on the defensive side of the ball.
There's still some questions about what happened with the whole Jeremy Banks thing. I'm not going to get into great detail on that, but, it'll be very interesting to see how the defense plays this week, as something was obviously wrong on Saturday. Something was off.
No, it didn't look like they wanted to be out there at all. It was bad all game.
It was very weird to watch, but yes, hopefully Tennessee does not perform like they did on Saturday, because if that defense does what it did against South Carolina, Tennessee will lose this game. And to be honest, it might not even be close, because you cannot tell me that there's a single team in the Power 5 that couldn't have scored on Tennessee's defense on Saturday night.
Yeah, it was sad to watch, and it's going to really, if Tennessee loses this game, people are going to start questioning Josh Heupel quite a bit. Is he too soft on his guys? Is he going to be able to make the hard choices, like firing a defensive coach that needs to be fired? Willie Martinez. It's just hard to watch. It was very, very hard to watch this past week, and hopefully they can turn it around.
So some quick things to think about for this game. Mike Wright is Vanderbilt's quarterback. He is a dual threat. Vandy also has a pretty good ground game. I mean, they're not world beaters or anything. They're not Ole Miss, but they have some solid backs. They'll be able to run the ball a little bit against Tennessee, I believe. The big question mark against Tennessee's defense is going to be: is the pass defense as bad as last week, or is it more of a normal Tennessee pass defense, which isn't great, but the corners aren't getting smoked every single play?
Yeah, it's really keep everything in front of you, and that's how we played all year. Keep everything in front of you. For some reason, that was all thrown out the window last week, and they really need to get back to that if we want to have a shot. This sounds weird. If we want to have a shot to beat Vanderbilt.
The line on this game is 14. Before the South Carolina game, I think this was near the 20 mark, 21, 22, somewhere around there, kind of like the South Carolina spread. But obviously, with Hooker's injury and with the defense no showing against South Carolina, this line has moved. Tennessee on offense with Joe Milton, this is going to be very interesting to watch because one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to see the Joe Milton that we have seen all year, the improved Joe Milton. He's going to look, in my opinion, he's if he is that good, it's really not going to be much of a step down at all from Hendon Hooker. Or are you going to see the Joe Milton from last year who's overthrowing guys who are wide open down the field, firing slants 3 feet over their head? Which Joe Milton are you going to see?
Yeah, and after listening to multiple radio shows and listening to some things from Milton himself, he looking back at last year, he realized that he had the accuracy issues, and he really wanted to focus on fixing those because ultimately he knew that it was going to be Hendon Hooker's offense going into this past year. But he stuck with it. He wanted to continue to improve. He wanted to stay in the program because he knew ultimately it was going to be his job next year. Just happened to be a little sooner than he expected. So hopefully the accuracy issues have been fixed. They have looked fixed all year, but he hasn't been in a high stress environment yet this year because every time he's been in, Tennessee has been up big. So we don't really know what we will see from Milton, but I'm hoping it's much improved from last year.
The good thing about this game is it's not like Joe Milton's going into a hostile environment. I mean, let's be real here. Half the stadium will be Tennessee fans, and so Tennessee fans will pack that stadium. There will be a lot of Vandy fans there, but it's certainly not going to be like playing at Florida or South Carolina or Georgia or Alabama or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and make my pick. I cannot pick a team to win when the last time that I saw them, it was just getting absolutely torched by an offense that scored 6 points the week before, and it was on a fake punt. It wasn't even the offense. It was a fake punt they scored on Florida. And it was really an offense that had been pedestrian all year up to that point. They just did whatever they wanted to against Tennessee. Tennessee could not do anything about it. Didn't have a stop all night except for the one right after halftime. So it's so difficult for me to pick a team where I have that many question marks about the defense because you're going to have to get a stop to win this game. And to be honest, right now, I don't know if Tennessee can get one. So I'm going to go with Vandy just because I do not trust Tennessee's defense at all right now.
Do you have a score?
I will go Vanderbilt 45, Tennessee 34.
Okay, so 10-point
11,
plus.
yes.
So 11-point loss. As many questions as I have about this Tennessee defense, I think they're going to have a little bit better of a game than they had last week. It's hard for me to pick, even though Vandy's playing their best ball that they have played, and Hendon Hooker is out for this game. It's hard for me to pick against this offense. So I'm going to say Tennessee is going to win this game, but it's going to be a lot close. I'm going to pick Vanderbilt plus 14 and a half, plus 14 here. I think this game is going to be a lot closer than most people are expecting. Give me, let's see. I think I'm going to go Tennessee 45, Vandy 35. I think this game is going to be about a 10-point game. Still two scores, but not two touchdowns.
I certainly think Tennessee could blow out Vandy in this game. I mean, they have the talent to, and before last week, I would say Tennessee was going to win this game probably like somewhere in the range of 59-21.
Yeah, but like we've mentioned, that defense, last week was atrocious.
And the unknowns of Joe Milton. I mean, you really don't know what you're going to get. I mean, you have some idea.
I will say I think he's a better runner than Hooker, so I think that helps our offense a little bit that way. But passing the ball, you still have questions on the accuracy, and I don't think those are going to be answered until maybe the bowl game even. So we'll see.
All right, I want to thank everyone for listening to this podcast. Please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and please sponsor us.
Yep, we've got another semester of college coming up, so we're going to need some help paying for that if you wouldn't mind.
All right, thanks again, and we will see you next week. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll see. We haven't decided whether or not we're going to do an SEC championship game podcast or not, so to be determined.
Yeah, but I guess we'll see you next time.